There is a big pain in the world, that men are experiencing, and most of them are silently carrying that suffering, thinking that they have to do it, that actually being a man is just, suppressing that suffering, that pain. And a lot of them are just going through hell.
Hi guys, welcome back to Collectively Rooted podcast.
I'm Leslie.
I'm Alexa B, and today we have
Diego again.
Hello, everybody.
Since we didn't do it the first time, Diego, can you introduce yourself fully?
Yeah.
Our apologies for our rudeness. We were so excited for the family constellation.
Great. Yes. So my original name is Diego Salazar Celi. My spiritual name is Yarawi. And I was born in Colombia, in Bogota, and I've been living in Florida for about 21 years. I'm currently working as a transformative coach, helping people to reconnect with their life, with their passion, with their joy, and so they can experience more fulfillment, more connection with themselves, with others, and with life. I also am a facilitator of family constellations. I also hold space in different healing containers like plant medicine ceremonies and sweat lodges, retreats. And I do also a lot of men's work, supporting the growth of our awareness as, with this healthy masculine energy. Yeah. And I'm also a filmmaker, I also carry that important message of the healing power of art and the healing power of films as one of the most important tools that we have at this moment in humanity to expand, awareness. Yeah.
our expression.
Yeah,
Yes.
Your expression. Yeah, those are the things that I cannot do in the 3D world.
He came in, he was like, "Can I just help you guys?"
I know.
Yes. It was all you can.
I had no idea, and I
all the
appreciate.
things.
No, of course.
Thank you for asking, but we're very open to
Yes.
Thank you for being open. Yeah. Sometimes I get too intense and I start getting the director and I start just calling for the special effects.
No.
He's like, "Let me call my guy."
I appreciate
Like how about we start with a dolly here and yeah.
This episode will be focused strictly on men, which I love, and all about them, and in what Diego does for our beautiful men out there.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit? I know we initially talked about Hombres del Fuego. We will talk fully about all types of things you do for the men, but I just would like some information on that.
Hombres de Fuego. Yes.
Hombres del Fuego.
Yes, Hombres de Fuego, Men of Fire. It's a community that we founded with two other good friends and brothers, Ruben Fraustro and Alonso Jabar. And we created this community back in 2020. And the reason why we created this community, and it's the same reason why I do men's work, is because I needed that space. I needed, as a man, I needed that space to go to a place where I can experience the medicine of brotherhood, the possibility to connect with other men in a conscious, healthy way, and a lot of times, my experience, and I know most of men have this experience of just connecting with other men in these unconscious, dynamics, it's like sometimes it seems that we're stuck in this teenager, mentality. We're just, connecting for superficial stuff or unconscious stuff. And I was tired of that thing. I was tired of that. I was calling for a deeper connection, a true connection, powerful connection with some brothers to remember what's the truth of embodying this possibility of being a conscious man. And because we in this journey, like same thing that happens with women, we also experience that. In order for us to really fully awaken our potential, we need the brotherhood. We cannot do it by ourselves. This is something that needs to be done in community, in brotherhood. So, and there is a big pain in the world, that men are experiencing, and most of them are silently carrying that suffering, thinking that they have to do it, that actually being a man is just, suppressing that suffering, that pain. And a lot of them are just going through hell, with that. I was going through hell with that. And I've seen we have the the facts, the studies that show that men are committing more suicide than women,
Yes.
and there's all these crazy dynamics that are happening for men out there, and we needed that space. So we decided to start this community. We started online because it was also during the pandemic. We're doing these different workshops, and we start building the community back there, and it's been a beautiful journey. We've seen big transformation in our community. At the beginning in 2020, it was very hard, to really. I was sharing with you before how at the beginning we were struggling to really bring men. They were like, man, we don't know how to. We don't like, yeah, man, like, please, like, we all need this thing, but we're kind of convincing them to come to do the work, and it was really tiring. And at some point we stopped doing the work, and I start doing the work, the men's work with with different people, with different brothers, as a coach, helping men. And at the beginning of this year, Alonso, one of the founders, he called me. He's like, man, it's time to really reactivate Hombres del Fuego. It's time to do it in person. It's time to take it to the next level. Men are ready. And I was like, yeah, I'm also feeling it. I was, I did this retreat last year in English, was great. And I was feeling how, men in general, I need a different place. A lot of them are doing the work, we're doing the work, women have been doing the inner work, the healing work for a long time. And we're starting to to catch up a little bit and to do our work. And so we start doing these circles of men's circles here in Miami with fire. We're Hombre de Fuego, men of fire. So we have these circles where big part where we do is bringing back our connection with our own nature. You see, it's very simple actually, but it's not easy sometimes because we have built all these different beliefs and obstacles that disconnect us from our own essence as men. So in these circles, we allow that nature, that essence to come back, to life. And so that's what I've been doing, with Hombres de Fuego. Yes.
It's funny because us women, we've been doing the things, the sister circles, all the things, and we're like, if only we get the men to do it. Because, like you said, we are doing the work, and my husband says it all the time. He's very he's very open. And he says men suffer in silence, like you said.
Yes.
Men suffer in silence. The mental health is crazy. He's like, oh no, but we have to be a man. Like, he's being sarcastic, but he's like letting me know how it is. Because as a Cancer, I'm a Cancer too. I'm always like, I know something's wrong. Something's wrong. Is wrong, and he won't tell me, and like I have to fish it out of him. I'm like, just freaking be open with me. Like, I'm here to vent. Like, we need a vent. I'm here to like problem solve too. Like, we got each other. So, him. He saw his parents both suffer from sickness and die, and his first wife. So he really suffered a lot in silence. Like, he had people, but not really like being able to express that. So it's we talk about it all the time with my girlfriends. Like, if only the man would do, because sometimes there's like a stubborn about it, but also like you said, oh, we have to be like this, like,
right?
That's and I hate to say that's a bitch move if we have to like express your feelings and all of it. But but no, it's I guess the duality of it, but as the one too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of women are masculine.
Yes.
I'm very masculine, especially in the workplace. So it's okay to be a little bit in the just being in touch with your emotions and your body, and I don't know. So I'm so happy that you do this, Diego. Like, I really am. And I remember asking you last year, I'm like, oh, do you do it in English? So yes, the answer is yes, you do it.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm also doing, I right now I'm working with men on one-on-one, in my coaching work. I do coaching for men, and I'm also developing some, seminars and retreats for next year. And also in sometimes I do, family constellation ceremonies also for men. And so it's important to know that when we're talking about this men's work, one of the first conversations that I bring is the difference between being a man or men and women and masculine and feminine energy. Because we got to understand something very simple, that we all carry masculine and feminine energy, regardless of you're a man or you're a woman. You carry these energies, so it's important to acknowledge them both. Because there's moments where the feminine is calling for us to, for us as men, to be receptive, to be in touch with our emotions, with our intuition, receiving. Sometimes it's important for us to be in connection with our masculine energy and just, having direction, having boundaries, having a structure, discipline, all that is very important for us as men. And, also when I hear men, saying those type of things as your husband, which is very common because that's one of the lies that we experience as men collectively, that as men, it's weak if we feel our emotions. That's what, just for women, we cannot feel our emotions, because if we do it, we're not, men. And that's literally killing men.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that, how you process that, because yes, it's important to see, like, the invitation that I do to men is like, it's not necessarily that you do that and you experience your emotions all the time with everybody. Like, definitely, I don't invite people to encourage men to do that with the partner. If you're, let's say a heterosexual man and you have a wife or a girlfriend, it's not the best place to do it, all the time. That's why it's important to have a place, a safe place. It's good to have a therapist, and it's good to have a coach, and it's good to have a group of men, where you can go and share your situations, your challenges. One of the simple things that happen there is that you can realize that it's not, you're not separated from the world. Your situation is not you're not the only one who's going through that, but it's something that it's similar to the experiences of many other men. And there's also ways on how to heal and approach that is, we've been going through for centuries, that we know how to approach those type of things, that a lot of them have to be some of the principles of our masculine energy. We will always work with these archetypes of the masculine energy. Sometimes a lot of the problems that we have is because some of these archetypes as men are in shadow, are suppressed. And when we start bringing those into awareness, we start to heal and to bring harmony to our lives. So the other possibility is when you suppress all that, and there's no way that you can win the war on your shadows. Because in order for this to be understood, like, I want to explain a little bit of what the shadow is. It's a concept that, a lot of, is very also, talk these days. A lot of people talk about shadow work, which is great. We need a lot of shadow work, everybody. So the shadow is a concept that Carl Jung brought, this psychologist, and he was referring to these parts of ourselves that we are rejecting, because at some point in your childhood, you experience, because the relationship that you have with your parents, the communication that your parents gave you, allow you to think, or they gave you the message directly or indirectly, that part was not okay, that anytime you behave in this or in that way, you're not loved, you were not right, you were suppressed, you were rejected. So if you experience that, it's natural that as a child, you start suppressing those aspects of yourself. Like if you tell, do not feel, do not cry, crying is for women, or, you have to just, you're not enough, all these different messages. We all have different messages that are limiting messages that made us suppress some part of us. And that's the shadow, because then we develop also masks, so, okay, I cannot be like this. I cannot be my authentic self. I cannot behave in a natural way, in this way. So I have to adapt, and I have to wear this mask, and I have to wear this mask to pretend I am like this. So my mother, so my father can give me attention, so I can experience the connection with them, so I can receive the love from them. And then we grow up, and then when we're adults, we just don't remember that it was a strategies that we developed in our childhood, and that we still carrying those masks, and that's really creating a lot of problems. So I'm saying that we can never win the war against, our shadows, because the more we suppress these shadows, the more they tend to explode at some points. That's when many times we, as men, we can explode, in anger and rage comes because we're suppressing these things. Oh no, yeah, I don't feel my emotions. But all of a sudden then you're exploding and then you're going crazy because you're not listening, you're not integrating your shadows, or you're isolating yourself,
Right.
and then you're disconnecting yourself from your family, from your team, from your project, from your business, from yourself, because you're going in and experiencing this lonely wolf, strategy, disconnecting, or you just go to sadness, or you go to addictions. A lot of men are dealing, with their emotions, with addictions, which is a way of avoiding feeling that. But again, you cannot do that for a long period of time, because at some point that's going to explode and take over and create a lot of problems in your life. So it's important to have that space to really, become aware of what are those shadows, what are those stories that you're carrying about being a man, what means to be a man, because a lot of those are disconnecting you from your pure potential as a man, as a pure man. Because we also have a lot of misunderstandings of what masculine energy is. We talk a lot about the toxic masculinity, toxic masculine energy. And a lot of people refer to the masculine energy as something toxic. They say, like, that it's because of the masculine energy in the world that we're going through this crisis, this chaos, war. And because it's the masculine energy, which is about war and fight and conflict. Right. And I think it's very important to understand that that is not healthy masculine energy. That is not mature masculine energy. That is immature masculine energy. So we see two polarities when we talk about masculine energy, or immature masculine energy. The most common one is when we see men that are passive. It's hard for them to connect with their power. They don't have a clear direction, purpose. It's hard for them to set boundaries. It's hard for them to have discipline. It's hard for them to have a structure. That's one of the aspects in how immature masculine energy manifests. But the other polarity that is rooted in the same insecurity and fear is when men are very aggressive or violent. Not aggressive, because that's an important distinction.
Right.
Aggressive, or it's a word, but the aggressive could be something healthy. Something that is a masculine,
fire energy.
Like fire energy. That's a great way to connect with.
It's because my husband's that. That's why I could say that.
Yes.
I know it. It's fire.
Fire. That fire energy, that is so important for everybody, but for us, man, that's our life. Connecting with that fire. That's why we call it Hombres del Fuego, man of fire, because it's honoring that fire within, that what gives us life, what gives us direction, what gives us the power to create, to build, to protect, to manifest. To bring everything that we want to bring, to our family, to our team, to ourselves. And so when that is in this connection, because we are based on fear and insecurity, we can also become not aggressive, but using that fire unconsciously and become violent. And then we become abusive. Then we become like controlling. We suppress people. We become, the boss and not the leader. And we start just manipulating people, doing all these different unconscious behaviors because of fear. That is not healthy masculine energy. That's what is ruling the world right now. Yes, it's immature masculine energy. Mature masculine energy is very calm. That's something that is important to understand. Yes. Mature masculine energy is center. Mature masculine energy is rooted in the heart. Mature masculine energy is about clear direction, purpose, protection, protecting women. And that's really what it is. So that's not what we've seen in the world lately. No. So that's just, I think it's a very important distinction to have here.
I like, when I was doing a little research on the Hombres del Fuego, your work with men, I was going through the Instagram, and there was God, if I could remember each one, I don't have my phone, but it said something about like their heart. Like, when was the last time you actually listened to your heart, I think? But there was something before that part. And I asked my husband, I turned it, because he's very fire. He's just very, this is how it is. This is what a man's job is, regardless if he's exhausted, because sometimes he is like, I am so exhausted, I don't even know what to do with myself. But he keeps going. And he's like, is this what I'm supposed to do? And he came from, his dad, his grandfather, they were all like that. So I asked him that, I read that to him. I can't remember the top part of what you had on your Instagram, but the bottom one was, when was the last time you listened to your heart? Or you know what your heart said to you, or something like that. I wish I had it in front of me. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, just listen to what I'm saying to you. And I kept repeating it. And he goes, I understand the first part. And of course, I can't remember that part. And that was, I knew he'd understand that part. I have no idea what that means in the bottom part. And I was like, that's so sad. And he goes, but can you explain it to me? And I was trying it. I was not connecting, obviously, because I'm not a man. But this is what I mean. You guys need that space.
Yes.
Because he says, I have no idea what you're saying to me about the heart. Like, yes, I have a heart. But he just thinks it's a heart that's beating and you're keeping him alive. And he uses that. He's like, my heart's for love and all that. But I'm like, but are you listening to me? And he just couldn't. And that's when I was like, wow, this is really important. This is really needed.
Yes.
And my son too, he's one of those, I guess, I don't know if you would call him immature masculine, but he, for some reason, thinks men are supposed to just be this way. And when I've said, his name's Angel, I was like, you have femininity in you as well, feminine energy. No, I'm not a woman. I was like, I didn't say you're a woman. It's like I'm touching a trigger or something. And I'm just like, it's okay. And he's like, don't tell me that. And I'm like, don't be embarrassed. You have it. And sometimes when he's around and when he cooks and stuff, I'm like, I think you're tapping into your feminine energy. And I said, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just letting me aware that it's okay, that you have it in you. And we're all like that. So when you say that, it hits home. And I kept saying to Alexa and many people around him, I see it in my son and my husband. I just wish there was a space where they can speak freely, because obviously to their wife, girlfriend, moms, whatever, they're just like, no, that's a woman.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell her my feelings.
Yes. So in this conversation with men, it's helpful to bring the awareness of these archetypes again. So the archetypes is also another concept that Carl Jung brought. And that's referring to these energies, these potentials that we all men have. These are part of the collective unconsciousness, which means that there's this field of information where everybody's tapping into. We all belong that. We all have this exchange of information with this field. So we all have the capacity to connect with these energies, with these potentials, with these codes, with these archetypes. And sometimes we're not aware, so that's why some of them are in shadow. So one of the archetypes is the archetype of the lover. Many times I bring that archetype because for men, the lover. The lover. Because when we talk about feminine energy, if I say a man, you tap into your feminine energy, that create conflicts in their mind. So it's like, well, tap into your lover. That's the part of us that is creating empathy, that is creating the connection with our feelings, the connection with that joy, with that life force in us, with love, with that energy of love. It's one of the most important archetypes. That's the one that gives life to all of the other archetypes. The possibility to experience that energy within us. So the conversation really, it's always bringing us to spirituality, which I love. I tend to avoid the beginning of that. That was one of the big transformations that we had, because when we started this conversation, we were trying to avoid, talking about spirituality, energy, and we're struggling. And then we said, you know what? Forget about it. We're gonna speak, openly about what the work that is really needed here. So we start bringing the spirituality into the conversation, and the beautiful thing is that the right men are showing up. Men that are really open to explore their spirituality, because that's important. It's the men. Sometimes we train to be in this connection with our body and also with our energy, and in humans in general, we have this misconception about spirituality because of many religions, where we tend to understand spirituality as something similar to religion, like this God outside, or that is, following these laws and these, and we're sinners, and all these conversations that For me, it's not about spirituality. Spirituality is more about the awareness of this greater intelligence that is flowing through everything, this energy of life that exists in everything. So when we are aware, we not just rationally understand it, but we're aware because we have experienced these energies, greater intelligence, our life changes. And that's one of the big initiations that a man has. And so I'm going to talk about the king archetype, but it's also now that is coming. A very important work that we do with men is creating spaces for initiation, rituals of initiation that we have lost in humanity. And that's necessary for a man to become a man. That's why we have a lot of adults, men, that regardless of their age, they could be in their 20s or 60s or 70s, but they could be in a very immature mindset because they never experienced this ritual of initiation or to become a man. And these rituals that our different tribes, different cultures used to have, a lot of them were happen in nature, and were these rituals were helping men to reconnect with this greater intelligence, this greater force that bring humility. Because as teenagers, we think that we're the center of the world,
Right.
and there's no limit for us, and it's our ego ruling our our world, and that's what's happening right now. That's why there's all these selfish men just in this connection with their essence. That is, we all have this connection, and you're just like the joke of this person that is in a boat and is just making a hole, and trying to affect the other people. He's not realizing that you're also part of you're also in the boat.
Yeah.
So, and these rituals of initiation are essential for us to remember our essence and surrender to this greater intelligence, surrender to this to nature, and then also in that moment we remember our power. Because when we surrender to this, we create a distinction between strength, that is something from the mind, to power, that is something that happens when we're in alignment with life. And when we're in alignment with life, that's when really, we're in purpose. We're in this game of co-creation with this higher power. And that's very important. And one of the ultimate archetypes that we look for as men is the king archetype, which is about reconnecting with our heart. The king archetype is not, as the, kings in Europe, that's with all the respect, but that's all about, ego.
Show.
It's about show. That's not the king archetype. That's actually one of the shadows of the archetype of the king. When we're in this connection, that's what happens. But the king archetype is the possibility to sit inside our center, to be inside this place that we call the heart, but it's just a word. We're not talking about the organ. It's more about, the heart center for the ones that understand a little bit about the chakras. It's more about being in connection with this heart center that is allowing us to be in this place of awareness of these greater forces.
Right.
And when we are in this place, we can become more aware of what's happening, what life is asking us at this moment. We're not in our heads, but we're in this other space where life flows with more ease, with more prosperity, with more passion, with more purpose. Yeah.
These initiations, you say, are you able to tell us a little bit about them, what they are?
Yes. If you're a man? Nah, no, joke, no. If you're not a man, I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed. No, I'm just joking.
I agree.
I'm joking. We're joking. I'm joking.
Sir, I did want to say one of the things that we came into collectively rooted podcast was to talk about how we raise each other.
Right.
We're still like in the ages that we are, but we're raising each other. And you are potentially like you're raising other men to be men.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing thing until we die. We're always raising each other just because, we're not of age of like children or whatever. Like, no, we're still raising each other.
We're still learning
from each other. Yeah. So I think that's a beautiful thing that you're doing with
Yes.
and the initiations. I so needed.
Yeah. So there's different ways for these initiations to happen, but some of the things that we see is again, like we see these rituals. That's how we do it most of the time. We do it in nature. That's why we do it. We do these retreats where we do, ceremonies, where we do different rituals that just allow us to go deeper within ourselves. We have to experience this because theory is important. We explain a little bit of how our mind works, how you're not your thoughts, your thinking mind. That's a important step. And you are something greater. You are. We could call it this pure consciousness. That's who you are. In that sounds, for some men sounds like confusing, but we also know that there's a lot of men very aware of this. There's a lot of men that are doing the work, are doing, they go into ceremonies, they meditating, they're doing all these healing activities, and they know this vocabulary, and that's the men that we're communicating more, lately. But we're open for everybody. I'm always open to help, to support the process of every man who's feeling the call. But it's important to know that that's what happens there. It's just like, in a way, we become just more aware of our essence. We disconnect from this identification with this character, and then we open to the awareness of our true essence, as beings, as life. And then when that happens, we're in a different place. So we do that in different ways. Again, we do ceremonies, we do rituals, family constellations also help. And one of the ultimate tools again is meditation. That's how I also help men one-on-one. We do a lot of systemic work like family constellations and deep meditation, because the initiation really happens. It's like it's nature that is doing the initiation. Like it's at some moment with these practices, everyone can reach to this space of that something happens when you just experience this place of the pure consciousness, this place of unity, this place of the source. You experience God, you experience this life force. It's not that you read about it, but you fully experience this, and then you start connecting more with it, more and more with it, and then you are able to actually tune into this in every day, and then you're in a different place. You are at service for something greater. That's one of the missions of the king. The king is not acting from a selfish place, but the king is always in service to something greater. He's in a mission for the kingdom.
Right.
And that's something that only happens with the awareness of this greater intelligence. Yeah.
I think a lot about like, and not to say like, oh, just put off the adults, but what about working with children, like you working with teenagers?
Yeah.
Children, not really, but like teenagers, because that's where they're like lost. They don't know where to go, their hormones.
Especially nowadays.
Or like fathers and sons, even because, that's important too, is like helping the father with the sons, or like, that connection, especially that you're a father and you have a son, right? But have you ever thought of that, like doing circles for the teenagers, either with them and their dads, or just them, or, because sometimes, if I have a kid, I'm like, oh, but you're taking my kid in our street to where? Like, so would you be open to that, and maybe something local, or I don't know?
Yeah, definitely. Like in our circles, we always welcome, teenagers, and a lot of times we have the blessing to having, teenagers with his father, and that's a huge blessing because we see that relationship transform, and with that, all the whole circles get that healing. So it's really, really beautiful, and it's amazing. We always, encourage, these young men or these teenagers to recognize the blessing that they have, because we didn't have that. A lot of us, we didn't have that possibility to remember and to do these rituals, at that age, because in many cultures, these type of rituals of initiation were happening when we're teenagers. When we're going through this experience of becoming young men. And so it's definitely there for them. I also work with teenagers on one-on-one basis, and I do these different practices. I love to support them. Yes, like I have a son, and it's beautiful to hold the space for this, little man to transform and to see all the potential, and remembering his tools. And also, like in every other dynamic, when we're holding a space for someone else, the healing is in both ways. So of course my son is my biggest teacher, and anytime I hold space, for a teenager, I learn so much about life, and they have all these, I love, this, all this power and strength, and when they're remembering how to tap into them, and they really remember, it's because it's for them, it's very natural, because it's very natural. What we do is not really about learning stuff, and it's more about just releasing the stuff that is no longer serving us, and reconnecting. It's more about getting rid of stuff. And so when we got rid of that stuff, and we're just more authentic, more who we are, and more in tune in our power. And for teenagers, it's just very natural. They just experience, and the biggest transformation that I experience, they're not even aware. After some months, they're in a different reality, but it's so natural, so authentic, they're not even aware of what happened. Yeah.
Could you walk us through a process of, from the beginning to the end of either the Hombres del Fuego, or how you assist men or a man one-on-one connect back to their authentic being, even if it's some men that I'm sure you've come across that it's like running, they just don't want to open up. How does all that come out and work?
Yeah.
How do you assist them?
So it really, when I do it one-on-one, I do it specifically depending on the men, like depending on their challenges and their goals. And when we do it in group, it also depends. Like sometimes when we do the retreats, we acknowledge these 4 archetypes, and that's what we do, like the awareness of these potentials that we all have. And then everyone start to become aware of their own shadows in that process. And usually a very common place that we bring awareness is our relationship with our father, and our relationship with our masculine energy in our family system, because it's, sadly, very uncommon to see masculine, healthy energy in family systems. It's not out there, because we didn't have that at some point. Most of humanity lost that. So it's just bringing that awareness, and in a way reconnecting of the masculine energy in our system that we have lost is one of the first steps that we're receiving, so we can receive that blessing in a way from our father, and the men in our system to do it differently, to do it in our own way, to grow. And we start embodying those practices, like in different ways. Like we go deeper to remember, to visualize, to tune into what's possible for us, from that pure place, like releasing everything that we heard that's possible, that is not possible, that, that's right, that is wrong, and tuning into our true authentic self, and what's really calling our soul to experience, to give, to create. And then we start practicing it. We do different things to embody that, to feel that, to cultivate those emotions, to cultivate those habits of the man that we truly want to create.
Like breaking generational curses as well, right?
Yeah, because that's
because if the man or men didn't have the father figure, or a good father figure, I should say, not good, because what I seem to think the parents you have, in this case, the father a man may have, is treated the way they're treated because that father also was treated that way or worse. So they don't know. So I guess what I'm asking is, how would you not teach, but how would you speak to a man that comes from that, but doesn't even know why they came from it, or because it's so many, like I said, generations back, that's just been a thing of the men lineage in their life.
Yes. So I usually, because it's common that when I ask men, like, hey, well, how was your relationship with your father? And how much of a healthy masculine figure was your father? A lot of times they say perfect. My relationship with my father was perfect. He was the perfect man. Like, okay, all right, all right. And so then I start inviting them to reflect on some things. Like, okay, tell me about how clear are you with your purpose? Tell me about your discipline. Tell me about how the possibility for you to be present with your wife, with your children, really present, not just physically but emotionally then with them. How much of that source of presence are you in your team?
Right.
Tell me about the leadership. How good are you to influencing your team to really move, not because they have to or fear, because they're inspired to do their best.
That
You
right
know,
there.
and when we start having those conversations, which is a conversation about the masculine resources, a lot of them start to accept that there are some things that they could be better,
Right.
and then I start inviting to reflect. Oh, well, tell me how your dad was with that as well. And then they start to see some similarities, some patterns there in that journey. In my case, my father passed away in 2012, and he was one of my best friends. He was a great father. He was an amazing dad. He was very loving, very present. A great provider, an amazing leader. He was actually a leader in the community back in Bogota. He was, big part of a movement and teaching people about solidarity and community. And he was an amazing leader. But at home, with my mom, he was not in his full masculine energy, because he didn't get that. My grandfather, experienced, addictions, and my great grandfather, had some, also emotional issues, and it's back, generation to generation. So in one family constellations, I saw my father, this powerful leader that I saw, as a very insecure child. Like, no, the constellation is wrong. That constellation is wrong. That's not right. That's not my That's not my dad. For the first time, these constellations, they're mistake. It's not working. It's not working. And it took me, probably weeks to really accept and integrate that what I was observing and what was happening. And it was in a way the unconscious deal that he made with my mom was like, okay, you're in charge of the kids, and in a way that he was not allowed to bring discipline, because my mom also had these, limitations, traumas, because of, everything that she experienced in her life, that she was associating discipline and masculine energy with pain, with abuse. So anytime my father was bringing this energy, this security at home, she was like, no. She was like, no, that. Don't bring that, to my kids. And
children,
she was
yes.
protecting us from masculine energy.
Right.
So she was protecting us from discipline, from direction, from structure. All that was
Chopped away.
was chopped away with protecting us from that. So I didn't have any of that, and it was hard for me to accept it. So the process was to start to building that, myself, as an adult, as a man, to start connecting with other men that had those resources, and just finding those myself, keep on activating those myself. And, that's the journey that I'm, of course, currently in the journey. But that's how it works, recognizing those patterns that most of us didn't have with our fathers, and start doing the healing to do it differently.
I I see a lot just in my either friends or family, immediate families. My husband with his father, very close. He passed in 2020, I believe. Yeah. So he was really, really close, and he was a leader, and he was a lieutenant for Broward Sheriff's Office, so he was a leader. And all the men in my husband's side of the family are some involved with governmental or cops or big, leadership like that. But at home, he was still a leader, but it was that aggressive leader that it was fear.
Yeah.
It wasn't that a father where there was no love. From my husband tells me, no, I never got like, and I love you or a hug or anything like that. But it was a lot of material love.
Yes.
Like what, like gifts?
Just anything he wanted, him and his sisters too, but since we're talking about men, my husband, absolute anything. And he was held, because he was his only boy, really high, and so he got to do whatever he wanted. And so he was really close to his father. And he says, I was really close to my father, but I can't, with our son, he says, I don't even know how to do that. And my son struggles with that now. He's like, I don't even know how to connect with my wife on certain emotional levels.
Yes.
And as a mother, of course, I'm like, oh my God, we failed. But I again brings me to where this men's circle and brotherhood and even those Hombres del Fuego is so important, because there's just so many of that. I constantly see it, even with neighbors, like I said, or friends, and they express that. And I'm like, wow, there's like, because I see how I go into women's things, and it's just so open. But I don't understand, and I don't know if you can help me understand, why is it so hard for it to be so like it is for women to find connection?
Yeah. So again, I think it's because of that narrative that we learn, and what it means to be a man. Because, and again, we learn that asking for help is not from something that a strong man does, but it's for that's for weak men. So we're weak if we ask for help. We're weak if we feel, and all these different narratives that are not allowing us to ask for help and to do the inner work. Some of the things that happen with masculine energy to understand is that, in a way, masculine energy is the capacity to be at peace with the intensity of life. The most beautiful things in life are very intense. Love, prosperity, vitality, they're intense. So when we don't have that masculine energy, in healthy masculine energy in us, we tend to avoid that intensity. And we do it in different ways. We do it, overworking, overthinking, with all the different possibilities for addiction, alcohol, drugs, sex, food, all these different things to avoid that intensity. And that's, of course, limiting all that to really flourish. So that's what we do in when I work with men, when I in one-on-one or in groups, is holding that space, for us. And I sometimes, when we start experiencing this intensity, it's obvious how they tend to run away. They wanted to avoid that.
Right.
And some things that I tell is just what is going to happen if you just stay here? There's nothing you need to do. Just stay there.
Right.
You're not going to explode. If you explode. They're like, and all of a sudden, this breakthrough happen, and they just release, and they can hold a little bit more space for that intensity, for that life force, for that abundance, for that love, for that vitality. And that's what we're learning. That's what we're learning, to hold more space, to be more able to be present, because that's one of the great gifts of the masculine, is presence, being able to be fully present. And we do that for ourselves, and we do that for our family, and definitely we do that for our couple,
Right.
for the feminine, being able to be present so the feminine can feel, can be the emotional aspect, and we can hold that space. We sometimes metaphorically associate masculine energy as a mountain,
Right.
that we're just, we're this place, that is present, that is stable. And we say that feminine energy is more like water, that could move in different ways. Sometimes it's very calm, sometimes it's the tsunami, and it's moving in different ways. It's beautiful because feminine energy allows us to experience these beautiful possibilities and emotions and feelings. And the masculine creates that safety for the feminine, for life to be experienced. But we gotta practice that. We gotta develop that possibility to be present with ourselves. If we cannot hold space for ourselves because we're avoiding that in our head or in all these different strategies, we're never gonna be able to do that for anybody else. So that we're paying a big price, and many times men are not aware
Right.
of that price. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. Because we see what good and it does, and like them going through everything, but how do we entice to, like, the husbands, the brothers, the fathers, like how do we entice them to, even without pushing them, without them rejecting, without forcing them to join the Brotherhood, but to join you. Like, how do we make it inviting for them? Because most of the times they're like, oh, whatever they say. So how do we
Yeah.
do the things to get them
Yes. So I think that's
across that bridge?
it's a conversation. I think it's more about questions. It's more about bringing that conversation with them. Like, what do you think about men's work? What do you think about masculine energy? What do you think about all these resources of masculine energy? What do you think about presence? And what do you think about healing? What do you think about growth? And those conversations are very important. And some men, in a way, they're not ready, to do this work. And to face it. And it is okay. It is okay. Like, remember, Jesus was the one who said that we're all free, even if we want to be slaves, so everybody's free. There's no right or wrong way to do things. It's important that sometimes also as as women, sometimes when I work with women, I also just be patient and be aware of what you're tolerating. There's some things that you cannot tolerate, right. And sometimes that's the inspiration that some men need. Like sometimes human beings and men need pain, suffering to take action, to grow. Like separation, illness, bankruptcy, depression, deep, deeper, addiction. But we don't need that. We don't need that to really take action. So I think it's more about, bringing that invitation, sometimes sharing your experiences in this women's circle and sharing a video, sharing a book, sharing, the podcast, about this type of work. And sometimes some of these conversations, touch a man's heart, and they see that, there's something that might be useful there, and that's that awakening, that curiosity. And it's up to them, because a big healing that is happening also in a lot of dynamics is women treating their men, their husbands, boyfriends, as children, as kids, like seeing them like little, and then just like mothering them, and just like, okay, do this, do that. That's not helping either. It's important to an invitation that I do to women. It's like, see the divinity in your man. See the king in him. When you see the king in him and really see him, and you communicate with that part of him, because every man has that, then you are inviting that to awaken in him, and then you unlock that, because you're seeing him as a king, you're treating him as a king. All of a sudden he's gonna start, or he's gonna run away, or he's gonna start showing up as a king, and then he's gonna figure out ways on how to grow as the king that he is.
Oh, I know that so much.
I have to, and my husband's probably gonna get me like, why are you putting my business out there? But I have to say, I guess I have to ask you too. My husband, for sure, when I ask him, like, I really do think he does listen to things I send him podcast. He won't listen to our podcast. I'll have to like screen record sections that I think will click on him. And he's like, no, I know you're right. Da, 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 da. He's like, and I know for sure the outside world have, aside from everybody else, but for our men, have put so much pressure on certain things that some of them is really hard to tap back into that authenticity, what you were born with as a man, to connect on a spiritual level, or how you were saying earlier, because my husband is the greatest husband and provider and father. However, that's all he thinks a man needs to is. And no matter what I tell him, he's like, but I'm doing it. I'm working, I'm providing, you guys are safe. The kids have this, that, they've done this and that. We're teaching, I'm doing it all. And I can see it through him. Like, he just would just be so much breathe if you could just like open up. So how do you, for that type of man, how, for instance, I know I'm not the only one out there, but he says, and he is, yes, and I'm grateful. And I tell him all the time for everything you do for this house, for this family. Thank you. but I think you need to do for yourself. And he doesn't understand what that means, or I'm not communicating it correctly because I'm throwing all kinds of things at him that I think would help him. And he's just like, no, that's not what men do. No, I don't need that. No, I'm fine. He's a very money person. So and obviously he suffered some stuff before in the past that made him that way, but he still holds on to it, and I respect that, and that's fine. But how do I, for instance, or many women out there that might be in similar situations, let their man see that, or men see that you have to do yourself too. Like, it's okay to just take care of yourself. Disconnect from what this world is telling you. You always have to be on. Like, you don't have to be on and going as a man, or you're going to be a failure, I guess, if you do. Is what I'm assuming he thinks. He's never told me that, but I see it. Like, I think nobody's thinking you're a failure if you don't. Or if you don't go to work today, or if like your income drops by 10 cents or something like that.
And it's interesting because that's a big important conversation that we have with a lot of men, in that and many times they say they come to do the work because they went through, again, some type of crisis, and they're like, but I'm doing everything right, I'm everything I'm supposed to do. And then we start to see the conversation, but again, how present were you for your wife, for your children, and how much of that generosity it's in an emotional level, how much of the lover you're bringing to the relationship, how much of that empathy are you creating in those spaces. And there's many other possibilities that these men could be not fully aware of. And what I see in many of these men, that how they fear, like, okay, if I in a way change the way I'm doing it, I'm gonna lose, money. I'm gonna lose my business is gonna be affected. And what I see is that many times they go through a transformation, and they ended up making way more money than they never even imagined that they were able to create with a different dynamic. That is not about the mental strength struggle that I was referring to, but it's more about the alignment of their
That's
power.
it right there.
And so that's a big part of what's happening there. And for women, what I say is, again, like, speak from what we call responsibility. What I mean by that is, like, and this is a very important piece that I think is important for everybody to remember, which is, like, if I talk about your experience, that could be disrespectful. Like, if I'm saying, like, you're not doing this, or you're doing that, or you're supposed to do that, or you have to do that, is like, that could be disrespecting. But if I speaking from a place of responsibility, is different, which means, like, okay, I experiencing this, I need this, I feel that, I think that way. So I would invite you to reflect. What is a clear request that you would like to have? For instance, things like, sometimes I feel that I'm not fully seen. Sometimes I feel that I would like to have more connection with you. Sometimes I would love to, have more passion in our relationships. Sometimes I would love to have more special moments together. Sometimes I would like for you to hear. Sometimes I would, and so, figure out what is the request that you have for them, so they realize that they could be better. There's something else. And we men are very problem solvers. When there's, well, see, everything is working perfectly, or we just keep on doing
Life
it.
is
But
great. Yes.
yeah, but this viewer, okay, there's something there. I mean, his mind is gonna start to figure out what is that I need to do, and at some point he will figure out that he has to do it in a different way.
Right.
That next level is not gonna come from the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that. So we did want to kind of close it off with.
Wait, I have another question though. Sorry.
Yes.
I was actually studying a lot on the Hombres del Fuego, and I found,
which I love that you keep up with both your Instagrams of Hombres del Fuego that you have with your, not business partner, but Brotherhood partner.
Yeah.
And with your family constellations, where you're always posting. So we could always reroute people there, and I do send them a lot. So
Me
I
too.
love about that.
Awesome.
And if you could explain it more, when you spoke about the sexuality of a man and the ejaculation, how important it is not to always, if I'm doing this correctly, I don't remember if this is how it was, you posted it on your video, to not always think of you needing to have to ejaculate, how healing that is, not only internally, but as a man. For the men out there that wouldn't know what that means or understand where you're coming from or think you're crazy, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I went down a rabbit hole. Yeah. What is that? Can you explain that?
Yes, that's a very important conversation as well. And so sometimes as men, we think that having an orgasm and ejaculating are the same thing. And it's not the same thing. We could have an orgasm without having an ejaculation. And actually, the more we do that, our orgasms tend to become, deeper and more beautiful, expansive, and healing. So anytime we ejaculate, we're releasing life force. We're releasing energy. Our semen has all this information in nutrients that are, taking the best of all our organs to create life. So if we're not using it to create life, we don't need to ejaculate. I mean, we could ejaculate sometimes, but the addiction and obsession of ejaculation are depleting the energy of a lot of men. Yes. And sometimes they're not even aware because they're so used to release their energy that they think they're okay, and have conversations with athletes that no, I ejaculate every day, I'm so strong. Bro, you don't even know what could happen with your life if you start, saving your energy. You could just, go to build an empire. Yeah. And so it's a conversation to have, and it's sometimes challenging because there's sexuality for human beings, for men, is very important. That's feminine. If we provide presence to the feminine provide that sensuality, that possibility to feel that. It's so important for us men. So a lot of men are, resisting that transformation because they think that they're gonna lose pleasure. So it's important to remember, man, that their pleasure is gonna go to the next level. And even in a way that you can carry that life force within you at every moment, and you feel, we sometimes call it an orgasmic life, because you're actually feeling that life force flowing through you all day long. Right. And you could use that life force in different ways because you cultivate that energy. So when we work with men in this way, we teach them how to move their energy from what we call the first centers, the first chakra, the first energy centers, to move up, to the different centers of the body, to get, when the energy gets to the heart, then the heart starts to organize the energy properly in a coherent way. So, but most men don't know how to move that energy there. A lot of men, they have all their energy stuck, in their first centers, and that's creating a lot of issues, a lot of traumas. That is carrying a lot of trauma. And when men think that the purpose of making love, of having sex, is ejaculating, they're most of the time not even present during during making love, and they're in their heads trying to get there. And so everybody's, affected by that.
They're already at the end result.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a robot.
So we're in disconnection with our body, in disconnection with our energy, in disconnection with our partner. But when we start changing our story or narrative, and we're remembering that it's more about the moment, it's more about that dance of that energy that we're creating there, the experience transforms, and the joy and the pleasure goes way deeper. And again, we see, like, my own experience. When I start cultivating my sexual energy, my whole experience transformed. The way I was able to focus. A lot of men, I have focus issues. Well, possibly it's because you're not depleting your energy. I have, a lot of men, I have anxiety, depression, or problems with this, with that. Many of those issues are solved when men start cultivating their energy, because it's a lot of energy.
Because I can
Yeah.
only imagine.
Yeah,
You know.
because that's not sobriety. No, sobriety. Listen to me. Celibacy, right? You're not saying
No.
No,
So
not at all.
not-
You're actually gonna be able to make more love than ever, because you're not. Because sometimes, men, when we, ejaculate, we lose our power, and that's it. And so it takes weeks for our system to really come back to our, potential after we ejaculate. When you cultivate your energy, you can make love. You become, a multi-orgasmic lover.
Right.
You could do, you can have sex way more times and in a deeper way, and of course you satisfy your women in a different in a different way. That's very important to know. So it's the joy will grow tremendously, but it requires discipline. But it's also, there's many people and many philosophies teaching how to cultivate this energy. Some of them, some of the more popular ones, actually they're teaching it in a way that sometimes it's not as very healthy. Like it's forcing things to happen. Like not necessarily the Kundalini. Well, the Kundalini is the energy. So there's many ways on how to work with the Kundalini, but there are a lot of some of the Taoist teachings teach about, like, even you grabbing your parts and forcing the energy to move, and closing some parts of the perineums, and like forcing the energy to move. And that's not necessarily,
No.
and that's even not really healthy.
No.
So it's more about the awareness of the energy and the relaxation
Behind
of the body. Many men are so tense when they're making love that it's when they really become aware of the energy that is moving in those moments, it's suffering. It was so eye-opening when I start tapping into this energy, recognizing that what I was calling pleasure was actually suffering. I was just suffering to release this energy in a way, and that's not really healthy. But when we start relaxing, that's the key word in this process. We start relaxing in our body, in our energy, in our moment. When I start being more present, then energy start to flow naturally, easily in our whole system. Yeah.
That was a great question.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to forget it. I was like, no, this is very important. Lastly, for me, I know you wanted to say something before we close, but I don't know if it was this or not. For any man out there that is on the border of, I'm not sure, I want to, but I don't. What are people going to think about me? Am I less masculine? What would you say to that man, that teenage boy, to not switch him, but to just decide if they're on the fence? Do I join a man's circle, a brotherhood? Do I not? Is it going to make me less than a man? What would you say to that man?
Yeah, I would say just, find out a brotherhood, a guide, a man, a place, an offering that resonates with you, or you have that curiosity. If you awaken that curiosity somewhere, I would invite you to just explore it. What are you gonna lose? What are you gonna lose? I mean, definitely you could learn things that could be beneficial for your life, and even transform your life in a really beautiful way. Just give it a try. It's many of the blessings that we experience, as we were sharing in the other podcasts, are in the place of the unknown. As men, we tend to be very rational in this illusionary comfort of the known. But anytime we are living from this place, we are trapped. We're slaves, because all the beauty of life is not there. It's actually in the unknown, in the mystery. That's a big part of what we're talking about, of living in the heart. It's trusting in those, in that certainty within you, within your chest, within your heart, within your soul. You have a certainty that something is calling. Trust that, and see how there's magic there. There is beauty, there's expansion, there is prosperity, there is purpose there.
I love that. Just be careful with the cults.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which goes back to like knowing, like feeling yourself and seeing if it's good or not.
And discernment, for sure.
Yes, important. Yes.
No, so I want to close with just you speaking on the dates, November 8th.
on your
Yeah.
retreats.
Plant ceremony.
Plant
Yes,
ceremony.
we have also on November 8th, we have ceremony, a plant ceremony, a hickory ceremony. That's for men and women. That's a place opening to again reconnect with our energy, reconnect with our heart. This medicine of the hickory, it's also known as peyote. And peyote comes from the nautical word peyolo, which means shining heart. So it's all about the awareness of this heart center and the awareness of our energy. And we do it all night. We have, we have prayer, we have meditation, we have music, we have dance, and it's really healing. It's really beautiful. So that's happening on the 8th. And then
Is that in South Florida? Or
that's in North Miami. That's in a place in North Miami.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's another SWAT lodge happening in Central Florida. I believe that the 12th or something like that, 12 or 13.
Okay.
And then we have a men's retreat in Spanish on November 20 to the 23rd. Happening in Floral City. A great opportunity for any Hispanic men that want to join us. It's going to be really beautiful. We're going to work with the archetypes. We're going to have also plant medicine, SWAT lodges. We're going to have family constellations, meditation, breath work, cold plunges, walks in nature, and men's circles, and the possibility to reconnect with our healthy masculine essence and also with the brotherhood, which is very important. Again, as we start this conversation, the possibility to have a group of conscious men where you can be yourself, be authentic, be safe to express whatever it is, your problems, your victories, and be supported by conscious men that want you to win, that want you to grow as well.
And that's in Floral City, right? Central.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's gonna be in nature, basically. Right?
It's gonna be, yes, this in this beautiful place called Wonderfield Farm, and this is a big
Is it
place.
camping wise or?
Well, they have the possibility to camp, or we're also gonna have very comfortable.
Camping. I mean, there's nothing like camping for men.
Yeah, that's a lot of men choose that, but men that wants the comfort. We also have the comfort of comfortable beds, AC, all the comfort is there as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well,
Thank you so much once again.
Specific details on
Yeah.
everything without giving too much away.
And holding space for the men out here.
With all the love, thank you for the invitation and for expanding this conversation that it's so important for all of us because we're all growing together.
Of course.
Thank you
yes.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.